Hi there. So, the last couple of videos that I recorded, I've been stating that I wanted to get into some discussion about the Dark Night of the Soul. The Dark Night of the Soul, um, I find that a lot of people talk about it, but I don't think that everybody truly understands what it is. Um, it's not depression. It's not, uh, my dog died. Um, It's not I got kicked out of school or it's not even I lost my job. It's a very, very, very deep sense of loss. The Dark Night of the Soul, it's in my opinion as close as you can come to death and or dying um mentally, um and probably in some cases physically, as you can possibly come without actually experiencing a real physical death. This is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. Um, in 2020, I lost somebody very, very close to me, and it threw me, and it does. It thrusts you. Something like that. You don't go into the dark night of the soul. You are hurled into it. You are thrusted into a dark night of the soul situation. Um, as I was, and which caused a complete, you know, um, metamorphosis and chrysalis type situation in my life. It was literally like the caterpillar who goes through the chrysalis and comes out into a butterfly. Um, the attributes of Dark Night of the Soul, some of them can be no longer relating to other people. Uh, you can feel alone in a room full of people, feeling disconnected from material desires, a feeling of being in this world but not of it, not relating to other people at all, loss of identity. That's the biggest one. Loss of identity. Who am I? Who am I now that this big piece of me is gone? Feeling a void inside of yourself, an intense need to connect with realms outside of the 3D, like the 5D, God, and the spirit realm. And then questioning your purpose now that a big piece of you is gone. A big piece of your identity is what you are healing from when you go through the dark night of the soul. I feel it's helpful to find a way, if you're a spiritual person, to sort of travel in between realms, to be of this world when needed and be in spirit at other times. The feeling of disconnectedness. I can speak from experience with this. So, when I went through my dark night of the soul, I was out of work for a couple of weeks, and in the hospital with somebody I cared for deeply while they were transitioning. And when I finally got back to work, 3 days bereavement is not enough, believe me. I finally got back to work and I just didn't feel like I could relate to people, and it was the most unusual feeling. And I know anyone who sees this video who has legitimately been through the dark night of the soul will understand what I'm talking about. You start to feel like you are nothing like the people around you. Like you have been through something so profound that people around you simply cannot, will not ever be able to understand it. And I'll give you an example. A parent who loses a child. Not every parent loses a child. It's kind of a unique scenario. So when someone loses a child, who are you going to go to talk about this? Everybody you know who has children for the most part, their kids are still alive. You know, it's um, it's unusual to be close to another person who has lost a child. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but to have people in your close proximity that have gone through that is very, I mean, I don't think the numbers are that high. Um, this can lead to a feeling of having no clear path forward. You feel a little bit lost, like, nobody understands you. Not even you understand you at times. And so you can begin to feel like, is this going to last forever? I remember feeling like that. Is this going to go on forever? Like, am I never going to be able to relate to other human beings again for the rest of my life? Fortunately, the answer is no. And it's just like anything else. Time tends to heal all wounds. However, there are things you can do that can help to heal these wounds. Another piece of a dark night of the soul is an ego death, which is kind of what I've been talking about, where a piece of your identity, like being someone's mom, I'm no longer Bobby's mom because Bobby is gone. Well, yes, you are still Bobby's mom, but it's different now. Like, Bobby's not here. Like, let's say Bobby passed away. Bobby's not here anymore. So, yes, you're still Bobby's mom, but those day-to-day interactions that you had with your son are gone. The phone calls, the birthdays, the birthday parties, the, dinners that you used to have together, the family gatherings. You got to figure out a way to make peace with those parts of yourself that you will never experience again in this life. So you've got to sort of retool your identity as, the parent of this deceased child. So your old self and those attachments are stripped away. And I touched on taking mental inventory. What I did to deal with the pain of the loss for me was I didn't necessarily write them down, although I suppose you could, but I mentally took an inventory of the things I lost. What future events did I lose when this person passed away? How does this affect my day to day? What things am I going to miss? What things am I going to miss doing with this person on a daily basis? And how can I fill that void? So, what I did, for me, this person played guitar. I started learning how to play guitar because what you want to do in a situation like this, if it helps, and not all people are built the same, but for me it helped, is try to keep alive those things about that person that you found were good in them. Keep those things that you found good in that person alive through your own day-to-day actions. Like, if they were an animal lover, maybe you can volunteer time at an animal shelter, something like that, where yes, that loss is still there, but you can find a way to honor that loss or to fill the void inside of yourself that was left when that person left. And it doesn't have to be a death, it could be through a divorce. Like, say you were married for 40 years and all of a sudden your husband comes home or wife comes home and says they want a divorce. That can throw you into a dark night of the soul because you're no longer Mr. or Mrs., whatever. So you lose that part of your identity. It's dark night of the soul is just another way of saying like a huge loss to your soul and to your identity that it's worse than depression. It takes a long time to adjust after a dark night of the soul type event. There are intense emotions, intense sadness and despair, hopelessness and frustration. It can cause feelings of being lost. This is where hobbies, like I just spoke on, like picking up an instrument, can fill the void. Joining groups, joining um, groups that focus on similar types of loss. The search for meaning can be a huge challenge, but it can also be a moment of enormous personal growth. When my person left that I was close to, left this earth, I found myself having a lot of existential questions that I didn't have any answers to. And I checked with a few people that I could trust or thought felt like I could trust to see if they knew any tarot readers, because I was like, I just had all these questions and they were like spiritual questions that I didn't think that going to a therapist was really going to answer. These were things like I wanted to know like what's next, because that feeling of loss, that feeling of grief left me kind of feeling like, where do I go from here now that I don't relate to this world? I don't relate to people. I don't relate to, I used to love labels. I used to love, designer handbag. I mean, I still do, but I had to get back into that. I had to, I call it walking among the living again, because I literally felt like I might as well have been on the other side too, because that's how I felt, dead inside. I felt dead inside. And I can imagine there are a lot of people who go through the dark night of the soul that will tell you when they went through it that they felt as close to death as you can possibly feel and still be on this side. So, like I said before, searching for meaning in life can be very challenging as you go through something like this. The things you used to love before probably don't mean anything to you anymore. I would look at my Michael Kors handbags and be like, why? Why do we love these things? Why do we want these things? They don't mean anything. They're completely meaningless. And in reality, they are. But when you cling to a material existence for so long, those things do mean something to you, and they don't start meaning anything to you again until you start feeling like you're actually alive again and you're living among the rest of the living. And so I say that knowing still I don't really care about labels anymore. I mean, it totally changes you. But anyway, I digress. So I was looking for a tarot reader and I couldn't find one. So the questions I had, I was unwilling to walk through life blind again. I felt blindsided when that happened to me. And so from that moment on, I said, I don't ever want to be that vulnerable again. I want to always have some idea of what direction life is taking me in. So I picked up cards and I taught myself. And I've been reading for 5 years now. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all. I actually see it as a wonderful tool that can help you. I'm not going to say see into the future, because I really don't feel like you can see that far into the future with tarot. I feel like with tarot readings, things can change. So you gotta, if you really want to know all the time what's going on, you really have to pull them all the time. But it can give you a general sense of what's going on in your life if you're into that kind of thing. And for me, like I said, just that feeling like I was blindsided, I never want to feel like that again. And I'm not saying I would want it to tell me, oh, somebody in your life is going to die. I wouldn't want to hear that either. But I feel like it kind of gives you a general idea of how things are going in the world, in your life. Whatever questions you have, you can ask those questions. That's kind of off the subject of what I was talking about, but it gives you a little bit of background about how um, going through the dark night of the soul can open up different avenues and different roads for you if you choose to go down those paths, because you're not the same person anymore. You will never be the same person anymore. You've got to assimilate to the curveball or curveballs that life has thrown to you. So you have to change regardless if you want to or not. There's simply no way to remain the same. The dark night of the soul is somewhat of an initiation that takes us from one place to the next. It's important to keep your sense of self-worth and power, keep your visions for your future alive. Let your darkness speak to you. Don't run from it. We all have a light and a dark side, and I feel like, as the name suggests, the dark night of the soul, we confront that dark part of ourselves when we go through such an event like this. And one thing I didn't really touch on, but I definitely meant to, and I'm going to, is loss of, it doesn't necessarily have to be a loss of a person or loss of a relationship status so much as it can be loss of financial status. Let's say you are extremely wealthy and something catastrophic happens and you lose everything. That is also a loss of identity, and I imagine that could throw some people into a dark night of the soul. It could be something like that. It could be loss of a career. Let's say you had a career as a CEO or something that you've been doing for 20 years, and suddenly your company decides they want to go in a different direction, or they shutter their doors.